How's it going? This is Hoiman, and today we're taking a look at S.H.Figuarts Cure Chocolat figure. So this is a web exclusive figure, but you still get the window to see inside the figure. And then you have pictures on the top, both sides, legal stuff for the bottom, and then the back you have various pictures of the figure. And to open the box, just lift open the side flap and then lift open the front cover. And there's the figure all together with her accessories. So first you do get some instructions showing what the figure comes with and how to operate the accessories. So here's the actual figure, and for the most part this is a really nice figure. I do have some gripes with it, but I'll get to that in a bit. But for now I do feel that the sculpt of this figure looks really nice. They captured the likeness of the character really well, and her face just looks just like her. Then you move on to her hair, which is in a nice matte red finish, but then you have the brown parts to represent the chocolate. And then it's sculpted really nicely as well, and it is sharp and it is mostly solid, so you have to be careful in handling the head. And that goes for the same for the back of her hair as well. It's very nice and spiky, and then they are very sharp for the most part. There is a bit of a seam line that runs through the hair, but it isn't super noticeable. And then you have the cat ears on the top, which are a solid piece, but they're nicely sculpted. And then you have her hat, which has a nice glossy finish for the chocolate on top. Looks really nice. And then the front part of the hat is a softer material, and that's to allow the face change a bit more easier. Then you move down to her outfit, really nicely sculpted. The chocolate part here is a glossy finish, same for the pouch. And then the rest of the figure is a nice matte finish. So you have the chocolate lines here on the sleeves. And then you have the nice tie here. And then you have the skirt, which is nicely sculpted and detailed. And that runs to the back as well. And then for the back, you have her nice chocolate cape, which is nicely sculpted. Has a lot of motion in it with the wind flowing. But there is a seam line that kind of runs through it as well. And kind of runs along the edge. So it's a little distracting, but because it's a dark colour, it's not really that noticeable. Then you move on to the hair, which I'm really glad is a hollow piece, because if it was solid, it would be extremely heavy and just weigh down the figure. And although it's hollow, it's still pretty heavy, but it isn't super, it doesn't really unbalance the figure too much. But there is a seam line that kind of runs through the whole length of the tail, so it is distracting and it shows how they put it together, but again, it shouldn't be super noticeable. Maybe it is a bit on this side since the gap's a bit wider, but again, for the most part, it isn't super noticeable. And it is nicely sculpted. You can see all the fur and texture in there. And it probably would have been nice if there was like darker wash to bring out the depth and sculpt, but I think for now, as a matte finish, it works just fine. You move down to the legs, again nicely sculpted and detailed. The boots are a nice glossy finish, whereas the yellow parts are nice and matte. And then they are sculpted in a fur texture here as well. So for the most part, this figure does look really nice. So for articulation, the neck is on a single ball joint, so she can look down about that much, look up, not a whole lot due to the hair. She can tilt her head side to side as well as twist. And because of her design, she isn't back heavy with any hair, so she doesn't have any trouble with any neck joints or anything like that. And then we move on to the shoulder joint, which is where my main gripe with this figure comes in. So it is on a ball joint, so you can move the arm about however you like. And this sleeve is a softer material, so it does allow for a bit more range, and it's on a hinge as well, so you can bring your arm out to the side. and these yellow parts are softer material as well, but because of her design it does really hit against it, so you don't get much range. But to rectify that, they added a pull out method for the shoulder, so you can pull it out slightly, and that allows for a bit more range in the shoulder. But this is where my main gripe comes in. When you pull out the shoulder joint, it becomes quite loose. It can't really hold her own arm very well. And because the sleeve is hollow and soft, it makes it difficult to push the joint back in. So if I try and push like that, it's not going to work because it's not directly touching the ball joint. So it makes it difficult to push it back in. So the way to do it is you kind of have to extend her arm and then just kind of push in like so. And it just makes it really fearful that I might break the figure like this because you're putting quite a lot of pressure. But because of the way it's designed, there's just no other easy way to put the shoulder joint back in. So that's pretty much the only method. So it does make it really risky. So try not to use that joint too much. But it's just one of my main gripes with the figure, really. But you can still move the arm forward, move the arm back, and the bicep swivel as well. And then the elbow is on a single joint. And then you have the wrist joints, which is on a ball joint. And this is where my second gripe is. Bandai continues to give these Precure figures really thin wrist joints. So just be careful you don't accidentally break them when swapping out the hands. For the torso, it's on a single ball joint, so she can lean forward not really a whole lot. She can lean back very slightly, lean side to side not really a whole lot, but she can swivel as well. So for the most part, she's quite restricted in the torso. And the skirt is in two separate pieces, and they are softer material, but the way they're sculpted allows for pretty much full range in the leg articulation. So the waist is on a ball joint, so you can move her legs about however you want. You can also twist them. Each leg is on a ball joint, so she can kick about that far to the side, which is a lot. Kick forward that much. Kick back all the way. She has the thigh swivel. And then single jointed knees, but this part does hit against the leg. And then she's got the ball jointed ankle, so you can go back that much, forward that much, can tilt side to side as well as twist. And then moving to the back, the cape is on a ball joint, so you can move that about however you like, but most of the time it does have trouble supporting its own weight. So it kind of does start to drop over time. So that's something to keep in mind of. And then there's a ball joint connected to the tail here. So you can move the tail back and forth, and then side to side, and then you can twist it as well. So for the most part, she has all the articulation you'd expect the Figuarts to have, and even more so because of the pull-out shoulder joints, and then the extra ball joints for the tail and cape. And because of her design, you should be able to get most of the poses that you want this figure to do. But that's the figure. Let's take a look at the accessories. For faces, she comes with a default smiling face, a similar face but her looking to the left, a similar face but with her mouth slightly opened, and then an angry shouting face. For hands, she comes with a pair of open palmed hands, and then a rack of various hands. So a pair of fists, pair of hands hold her weapons, two more open palmed hands, one hand holding the accessory, one hand to hold the perfume box, and then one posing styled hand. She comes with a perfume box, nicely detailed and sculpted, and then she comes with a main weapon as well. And then she comes with a display base, which is really nice that they included, but for the most part the figure doesn't really require it. And then finally she comes with her cake attack part, which is mainly a solid translucent piece, and it just has the image of her cake on it to assemble the cake attack. So my final thoughts are, overall this is a really solid figure, really nicely sculpted and painted, really nicely detailed, comes with good range of accessories, and the articulation isn't really restricted by much of her design, so she gets a lot of range of motion in her poses. But like I mentioned with my minor gripes, is that the shoulder engineering is a bit difficult to use since you can't really push back the ball joint. The really thin wrist joints are still a problem with these Precure figures. But other than that, overall this is a solid figure. I feel that this figure is on the more sturdy side compared to the rest of the Kira figures. Like, her joints are a lot tighter and the build quality just feels a bit more sturdier than the other figures. But because she is a web exclusive figure, she is quite pricey and she is in the newer range of Figuarts, so the prices of these figures have risen dramatically over the older Precure figures. But if you're a fan of this character or the show, then I can still recommend this figure. Well, that's my review. Thank you for watching and enjoy some pictures.